Hey, all, welcome to the WPC Plus. He is Nick, I'm Pierre. We're going to talk about some of the guys that absolutely shouldn't be on your waiver wire. If they are, pause this video. Don't stop it. You're going to watch the rest of it later, but hit pause, go pick them up, and then come back and watch the rest. Although you probably have to see who we're talking about before it, so maybe pause it at the end. Nick, why would
Hi.
some of these absolutely great players be on waivers still? Because we did talk in depth about some of them on our previous video, starting with Alex Kerloff. This is a guy who was a huge prospect. We saw kind of a glimpse of the power when he was up and then just got injured. I mean, why is he still out there? I mean, isn't this a guy where you should be holding?
Injuries and fear of the unknown and just a general roster crunch. You don't if your team's healthy, you probably don't have to go very far to find someone whose team is completely racked by injuries and struggle to get like warm bodies to even fill out a starting lineup. Cough me cough. Um, so you can't you're playing whether you're playing in like a 15 team league with shallow benches, or you're playing in a 12 team league but you don't have IL spots, and you only have 4 or 5 whatever bench slots. Like you can't, like, you have to make tough choices. Just it's not really an exaggeration. Like you have to make tough choices just to get enough players to have a healthy person in each starting slot and have some pitchers. So it's like when you're dealing with guys like Kerloff, who highly touted rookie, great prospect pedigree, came up, had some struggles, but also showed off some power, and then promptly hurt his wrist. Uh, Wrist problems are tricky for hitters, and his isn't that big a deal, and he's coming back very soon. But if you're a Kerloff owner who probably didn't draft him, probably picked him up, uh, and now you get a couple of weeks of, in totality, not great production, but he was heating up, and then he goes on the sidelines with a wrist injury, and you're staring at, you got 4 other people on the IL, and maybe some people that have you can't cut because they'll be picked up right away. Krylov becomes an easy cut. Like, he shouldn't be an easy cut, but he becomes an easy cut in a lot of situations, not because of talent, just because of situation. So he is, as of this morning, he was available still in like 45% of leagues in Yahoo and ESPN. Um so he might be, like, don't assume that he is not available just because he is a big name and had some fireworks before he got hit. Like, if you're in a 12 team league or below, like, you probably got a 50-50 chance of him being there, and he is absolutely someone that you should pick up. Like, he will have his rookie struggles, uh but I am counting on him being able to adjust back, because he's not some pop-up hitter. He's not some prospect that came out of nowhere. We have known about Krylov for a long time. We've been waiting on him for a couple years. Like, he has a beautiful swing, a great hit tool with some big time power that a lot of people think is going to get unlocked eventually. Like, this is a guy you want on your team, even if there's going to be some rookie struggles.
Yeah, and we talked in depth about him on our X Wilba 3 Up, 3 Down, which of course catch that after this one. So we'll talk about a few more players that are under 50% rostered, at least right now, in Yahoo leagues. Again, every league is different. Go check your wire, check these names, see if they are there. Um, Before we get into those names, let me tell you that weekly fantasy baseball is here. If you haven't heard of it yet, check out Owner's Box. Okay, it's the strategy of season-long fantasy sport, but with the short-term excitement of DFS. So the best of both worlds. So try it out. Go to rotoballer.com/box and sign up today. Our friends at Owners Box are hooking you up. All new users get up to $500 deposit match bonus and a free Rotoballer premium pass, which is a $99 value. Not too shabby. We'll be hosting weekly free roll contests on Owner's Box as well, which are free to enter with lots of awesome prizes to the winners. So go to rotoballer.com/box for all the details and sign up today. All right, now some of the players that you might consider drafting in your owner's box league, or at least picking up in your redraft season-long league. So let's talk about a guy in your favorite team. That would be the Chicago Cubs. No, I'm guessing not. Your shirt says otherwise. But still, let's talk about Nico Horner, right? Another fairly high prospect here, and he's made some waves early, looking pretty good. He was batting 350 after a few games. He's got a little bit of speed, got a little bit of pop. Looks like he now has a handle on everyday playing time. You like Horner? He also has a little bit of positional flexibility.
Yeah, I do like Horner. I don't make it a habit of trying to draft too many Cubs, mostly because of the lack of souls. But most of the fantasy leagues I play in, souls is not a category. So
Yeah.
Horner is going to be acceptable. No, like you said, he gives you a little bit of everything. The playing time was, an issue originally, just because there were a lot of moving parts on the Cubs, and you couldn't really hammer, and he was hurt for a while. But now he's back up. He's got, like you said, seemingly a handle on the everyday job. And, the overall line is, not sexy at all. But, it's going back to, what we talk about all the time is, and why it's important to, do, make values, and turn all those counting stats and, turn those 5 stats into 1 stat. And his little bit of everything is, gets it done, gets you some good fantasy value. He's got positional eligibility, which this year is even more important, as you get a handful of people on the IL, and you start, like, I look at some of my teams and I'm like, how does no one have an extra outfield eligibility? I'll stare at my screen forever, be like, I know one of you guys have outfield eligibility, right? And then just never pops up. So I'll take these guys with multiple positions, all that I can get. And Horner is, he's not overly owned because of, what we already talked about, the kind of, questions about playing time. He was injured. Guys like this, they go away for a couple weeks, and they go away from fantasy players' minds, like, for the rest of the year, until the player does something to, like, beat you over the head, be like, hey, no, I'm good now. I've been back for a few weeks. You can pick me up again. So yeah, Horner, like, you're obviously not getting any power, but you're getting some counting stats. He's got a 343 average through his first 77 plate appearances. He got 3 stolen bases. Like, there's a lot of offensive category drags this year, just because obviously we're in a different offensive environment. But man, it is finding speed is always tough. Finding batting average in a world where everybody is striking out 30% of the time and has like a 210 batting average. So it's that much more difficult to find some batting average. So getting that with speed as well, with multiple positions and with, like, consistent playing time, that's an easy pickup for me.
Yeah, and not like a guy like Kerloff who's got that that really high power ceiling. Horner doesn't have one tool that really jumps off the page, but a little bit of everything does the job too. Un poquito de todo, nothing wrong with that. And speed and batting average maybe harder to find sometimes. What's crazy
Yeah.
though? I think you're right. It's like these days it's harder to find an outfielder than it is an infielder, just because there's so many guys that can play multiple positions. The infielder, like, what happened to all the outfielders? I remember when it
Yeah.
was just like you
It's
just
yeah. It's
pluck them
weird.
off of waivers and you just throw them in your lineup. It's like that; those days are gone. Um,
Yeah.
but here's an outfielder you might want to pick up. And now I'll admit I am a Marlins fan. I have no problem confessing to that. There's not a lot of us, but we're still holding strong. So the Marlins are an adequate team with an adequate offense. That's probably the best I could say. But Adam Duvall has been a little more than adequate lately. He's a guy who, I'll tell you, when they signed him in the offseason, I was really happy. And it kind of surprised me. He just, didn't get a lot more demand in free agency, because he ended the season pretty strong with Atlanta. And he's doing his thing again with the Marlins. He's got the power. It's not a great park. I get that, right? He's playing in one of the worst parks for homers, but this is a guy who definitely has legit power, and now he's hitting in the heart of the lineup every night. So there's really a lot of things to like about Duvall.
Yeah, he's boring old Adam Duvall playing for the the boring lowly Miami Marlins, and you're like 32-year-old boring slugger. They don't want any piece of that, but he is what he is on batting average. Like he's I would say he's a batting average sink because he has a 220 batting average this year. He had a 237 last year. Like, a lot of low numbers in his life, but man, 220 batting average is not that big a deal anymore. Like, and that's why it's really important to going back to making values again. It's not just about understanding the values of your player. It's because what those values tell you, what whether you use the Fangraphs auction calculator or whatever, someone else's calculator, or make your own, which is the fun thing. I highly recommend it. It tells you, because it's telling you how much those players' stats are worth in comparison to everyone else. So it's telling you about the offensive environment too. And I don't need to go back and look at previous years and see the differences of like what a 220 batting average did to you before this year and what it does to do this year. It's just not as big of a drag, because in a world where league average is 240 or lower now. I think it was 240 this year. It's been 250 in the years past. Like, in that world where you look at, and it's not just like the scrubs, like open up go to your favorite fantasy platform and look at all the players and sort them by their total fantasy value or ADP or whatever, and then just scan down and look at those batting averages and see all of the guys that are having fantasy value with 240 and below batting averages. It's a lot. And so that's just like, that raises people like Adam Duvall up, these batting average sinks that in previous years the batting average was just no matter how many home runs they hit, it would just, that batting average was always there to drag that value down. And this year that drag is just not nearly as much because everyone is hitting 200, it seems like. So Adam Duvall, 8 home runs and 155 plate appearances. Like you said, he's playing every day. He's hitting in the hard to order, and he's doing the same things he's always done, except he's going to do it at, he's on pace for like 600 plate appearances. So yeah, there's and going back to like a depth of outfielder, that's a thing. Like, it's an annoying thing. It's like, it used to be people would just randomly pick up outfield eligibility, just have outfield eligibility. Like, it was never, and now it's just like, a lot of these guys are stuck on the end. They have multi-positional eligibility, but it's second, third, and shortstop. Not second, third, and outfield. And so Duvall, like a guy that, if you're not if you take batting average out of the equation, like if you imagine you're playing in a 4x4 league, you just take batting average out. Of course, Adam Duvall would be owned, right? Like, he's there's no way he's whatever he is, 20-30% owned if you're playing in a no batting average league. And that's kind of, you play in a batting average league this year, but that's kind of the attitude I think you have to take when you see everyone across the league with low batting average. Or, it can be this. It's the same thing for speed. Like, in a world where everyone is only stealing 2 or 3 stolen bases, the guy who steals 30 is king. And it's the same kind of thing. It's like it's a mindset adjustment, I think, in a lot of ways. Especially, we are conditioned to, like, years of playing fantasy and be like, okay, I'm gonna take Adam Dunn and I'm gonna take his 40 home runs, but damn it, I'm gonna have to deal with that 190 batting average. I better combo him with Ichiro. Like, that's it's ingrained in us, and now it's that drag is not there. Like, whatever. Like, you want a guy with a 220 batting average? Okay, fine, give him to me, because I want those 8 home runs in a year where power is way down. overall offensive numbers are way down. These guys who used to hit like tweener home runs, they're not going out anymore. We got a different ball, and we got 10 stadiums that have humidors. So like going from last year, bingo ball of just home runs are like the least valuable commodity of all because everyone hits 30, to now it's the opposite. So I throw that batting average out the window and just collect those home runs.
This all sounds like a suspiciously convenient argument for preferring points leagues instead of roto. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just what I'm getting.
I would
forget
never.
batting
I've gone on record. I love both of my children equally.
Oh, sure. There's always a favorite. Okay. So before we go to pitchers, we got a couple of names there. I also throw out Garrett Cooper, another Marlin. Hey, he's hit a pair of home runs the last couple games against the Mets. Won a game tying, won a game winner in the bottom of the ninth inning. So he's got some pop too. He's a guy who should qualify at first base and outfield. So just throwing that out there. All right, but let's start with the pitcher that I know you like, and we're starting to see signs. The ratios just still aren't too enticing, but all the underlying metrics just keep telling us to buy into Kikuchi. So tell us why we should buy into Yusei Kikuchi. Now, he might not be available. He's 47% rostered right now in Yahoo leagues, but there's some people who have dropped him and some who just never bought in. So do you still believe?
Yeah, I still believe. No, we've talked about him before, but Kikuchi had the big changes that that started last year that have continued again this year as far as talent goes. Is the one is the velocity. Is that his is when he first came over from Japan, he was sitting 95, 96 in Japan, topping out at 90, could touch 97. Came over his first year with Seattle, and he's sitting 92, and topping, like very topping, like 90, 95. I think he only hit 96 like twice in his first year in the States. And so his velocity went up last year, and it's gone up. He kept it again this year, and now he's back to sitting 95. And between that and a pitch mix change, and he added a cutter, and he is a tinkerer. He's been, even before he came to the United States, he was big into pitch design, big into and just like making himself better, adjusting his grips, adjusting his angle, like really had like a whole team of people, very Bauer-esque, like fanboy Bauer a little bit, like tracked him down in an event and like picked his brains, and he's just it's that kind of mentality. And so, like you said, the ratios aren't there yet, but man, they're getting there. Like he's got a 1-1 whip, and his ERA is down to 4.32 with a 4.45 FIP, and then looking for FIP is really great at telling you what how much of that 4.32 ERA was like deserved. It's good at looking backwards, and so FIP is telling us that he kind of earned that 4.32 ERA, but then XFIP and Sierra, he's got a 3.40 XFIP and a 3.73 Sierra. Those are forward-looking evaluators. Those are numbers that can tell us more about what we might be able to expect in the future, given the skills he's shown so far. So, looking at those evaluators, like, under, 3.4, 3.73, great. So I think those will keep coming around. And besides the velo increase, it's come with a strikeout increase. And that was another thing that didn't come over initially with him from Japan, is that he wasn't a crazy, like, he was a relative strikeout artist, like because they strike out less in that league, but he came over and he had a 16% strikeout rate in 2019, and then that went up to 24% last year. Like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. and then now it's almost 27% this year. And he's cut the walks down, the velo's up, and like he's rolling, and he's got, looking at the he's got some good starts coming up too. Like that's, he's already kind of been on a roll, like you said. Like he may not be available, but he's going to be available in a lot of leagues just because he is one of those guys that has been picked up and then dropped again quite a few times. He was almost certainly drafted, and he's in an average league, he's probably been picked up and dropped 3 times just because he's had bumps in the road and he gives up home runs, and he's had a good stretch, but nothing spectacular. But he is like, I think that he could move, like he's out of streaming territory for me. Like on the teams where I have Kikuchi, I am not dropping him. As long as the performance keeps up, because I don't think I'd get him back. And I think that is going to be particularly true coming up just because he has some decent matchups coming up. So his next one is at Oakland, which that's a tougher one. Oakland has a 333 WOBA versus left-handed pitchers. That's 8th in the league, and a 24.5% K rate. But then after it started Oakland, he takes on Texas at home. Texas has a lethargic offense. They love getting no hit, and they have a 298 WOBA versus left-handers, a 25% strikeout rate. And then another very manageable start at the Los Angeles Angels, 308 WOBA versus left-handers, and 20% K rate. But those are 3, like, not like jump off the page, oh, they're playing Detroit or Pittsburgh starts, but they're 3 like manageable starts in good pitcher ballparks where he has a decent splits advantage. So like this is a run. He's 40% owned now, but if he does good again, he's got a 2-start week this week because he was supposed to start today against Texas, but they scratched him under the weather, stomach bug, something, I don't know, but he's starting tomorrow now. So now he has a 2-start week with Oakland and Texas, and with pitching against Texas on Sunday, and Texas is terrible. So I mean, he'll probably, they've been no hit twice, so I'm sure he'll come close to no hitting them. But point is that after this week, like that 40% roster percent is probably going to be like 70%. Like unless if he gets blown up, obviously he's going to go right back to streaming. But guys like these 30 to 40% guys on pitchers, like they have one, they get momentum. You kind of see them. I work on waiver wire stuff a lot, and so you kind of see the movement in relation to how often, how they've been pitching recently. And if Kikuchi holds his own against Oakland and then throws down something pretty nice against Texas this time next week, like he is not going to be available on most wires.
Yeah, this is the time to grab him, in other words. But and don't forget, talk about that schedule, Troutless Angels, so advantage there. And also,
yeah,
Oakland, you look at the season-long stats, they had that insane streak, right, where they were hitting, 5 homers a night. So that's going to skew things. Obviously, have cooled down quite a bit since then. So, it's a pretty good schedule. Now, you mentioned Oakland. I want to get your thoughts on James Caprilian, somebody who is looking pretty good. Only 2 starts. So take the stats with a grain of salt. But, man, I actually caught some of the game the other day when he was pitching. He was hitting his spots. He was working the corners. But you could tell he had a composure about him, for a guy with very little major league experience. Kind of a late bloomer, I guess. We talk about, someone who's 27, just really, finally getting his chance in the rotation. But I mean, he was cool as a cucumber up there, and he was walking off the mound after strikeouts, and he did that quite a bit. 15K so far in 10 2/3 innings. So I'm in right now. I've added him in a couple leagues. How in are you? Because Oakland, they've got a lot of names there, right? Some other pitchers like Jeffries, and Irvin, and young pitchers that we've all been looking at, and they don't really seem set on one. So that's the problem. I worry that if he does get blown up in a start, then all of a sudden he's back out of the rotation.
Yeah, I hope not. Caprilian's one of my like soft spot guys. One of my pitchers that have been lurking on like all my dynasty teams, that I just like for one reason or the other. Just not to say Caprilian is going to make this list, but this list has formerly included Corbin Burns and Dylan Bundy. So I'm hoping that that Caprilian will. And my poor sweet Dylan. Will people just leave him alone and stop hitting his baseball so hard? But I won't go on a Dylan Bundy tangent. But Caprilian he's one of those guys. He has really good stuff. He does have some pedigree. He's had tons of injuries. He was so he used to be one of the Yankees' top pitching prospects. And he was traded a long time ago, not that long, but long in baseball years. He is how the Yankees got Sonny Gray when they traded for him a couple of years from Oakland. It was Caprilian and Dustin Fowler and someone Jorge Martillo. But Caprilian was seen as like, all right, this is what we're getting for some, Dustin Fowler, Fowler was a piece, whatever, Mateo was a piece, but Caprilian was one of the Yankees' better pitching prospects. And they got him in that trade because he had just gotten Tommy John surgery, like just. And it was like a discount move. And then he had another injury and then got buried at the A's and just injuries, moved to the bullpen, injuries, and like you said, he is cool as a cucumber, and like that's kind of come across as he's been battling like through all these, read some interviews here or there, and he is the guy's got some perseverance, like he's got an iron will. And so the fact that I'm just happy that he's like made it, and and not as like a bullpen guy, like they got it because he's back to starting. And so yeah, I like him. I like him quite a bit. He has a filthy changeup. Like that's his showpiece. He uses it about 30% of the time this year. It gets elite drop. Like some of the better drop you're gonna get. And he pairs with a couple of above. He's got a slider, a sinker, and a four seam that's got a lot of ride. So he was a good prospect because he like that's the thing is like these pitching prospects especially, like they can go away for so long because of injuries. But the reason Caprilian was a good prospect in the first place because he had really good stuff and he had a deeper repertoire. So like you can't just erase 2-3 basically lost seasons. But the fact that he's a little bit older, I'm fine with. And looking at the upcoming schedule, he has a juicy schedule. This isn't like Kikuchi where if he has a good week, like you're going to come back, he's going to be 60% on this next week. But his next two starts are lined up against Seattle. So home versus Seattle and then away versus Seattle. Seattle is not a very good offense, and they are not very good versus right-handers. They have a 286 WOBA versus right-handers. That is 29th in baseball and a 25.8% K rate. So those are back-to-back starts he's going to get against a subpar offense. So hopefully he'll have a chance to succeed. And then in his third start, you're going to want to go ahead and ship him on right back to the bench because he has to go to Colorado. Which Colorado also not very good against right-handers. They're like, bottom 6 of the league, but also course. So you're not going to want to start him there. But before that, he gets 2 starts in Seattle. He's got good stuff. He's on a roll. Like I added him. Actually, I don't know how many places I've added him because Fab ran tonight and I haven't checked yet, but I'm pretty sure I put in a bid in like every league that I'm in. So we'll see how much Caprilian I have this time next week.
Yeah, well, that answers that question. You're definitely in. I am too. So definitely somebody who's going to be under the radar until we see him string together multiple starts that are successful. Unless you're somebody who really follows prospects and knows that he's not somebody that's known to most fantasy baseball managers. So that's why we're trying to hip you to him now. And then the last name is somebody I've been on, and I shamefully must admit that I drafted in the Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational and got cold feet after a couple of mediocre starts, and I dropped him to make room for somebody else.
Shame.
Shame and disgrace, yes. But I'm gonna try to pick him back up. You should pick him up, and that's Adbert Alzolay of the it's the Cubs again. I apologize, Nick, but we had to put him in here. So look, his first start against the Brewers, he gave up 4 runs, 2 homers. So not too great. Since then, he hasn't given up more than 3 runs in a start. Not getting stretched out too much, but his last outing was 7 innings, and it was a good 7 innings. Only gave up 2 runs and 5 hits, struck out 6 and walked none. 3 straight starts without a walk, and that was the only thing to worry about with Owsley was control, like his walk rate. We know he could strike guys out. It was just would he walk them too? He is not walking anybody these days. He has a 0.86 WHIP, along with a pretty good strikeout rate. So I recommend adding him pretty much everywhere. Are you on board with that?
Yes and no. I like the talent quite a bit. I don't like his upcoming schedule. But speaking to the talent first, you nailed it. You nailed it first off. Like we've known that he has big time K potential. Cup of coffee last year, 21 innings, he had a 33% K rate. Like he ran big K rates when he was in the minors, but he has had no control. A once again crazy small samples, but between 2019 2020 he had 36 innings and a 15% walk rate, and he did the same thing in the minors. Lots of as he went up the levels of the minors and got to more advanced hitting, his walk rate just kept climbing and climbing. So that's the bugaboo with lots of young pitchers that can strike a lot of people out, is can they also not walk them? So that's the big thing. He's dropped down to, he's got a 4.2% walk rate. Like that's not sustainable. I don't think, but that shows a big improvement. But in his case, it shows the improvement. Like, and that's kind of right. The difference for me in looking at pitchers is like, yeah, lots of pitchers need to improve in lots of different areas, but a lot of times pitchers will have the improvement. Like he needs to be able to throw his fastball for strikes, or he needs to, he needs to stop walking people, or and the walking one is the big one. It's the big like the leveling blade of when people make the jump to the majors. Be like, okay, Rook, you can strike out lots of people. Great, lots of people can you also not walk people? And that's what sends people back to AAA. That's what sends people to the bullpen. That's what separates starters, good starters, from the junky ones. So the fact that is the improvement that Alzolay has shown, like that is a big indicator for me. So like that a lot. Like him going forward. Don't particularly like him coming up. His next 3 starts: home versus Cincinnati. They have a 338 WOBA versus right-handed pitchers. That is second in baseball. And then his next 2 starts are home versus San Diego and then at San Diego. They have a 328 WOBA versus right-handers, 8th highest in baseball. And Padres also only have a 20% strikeout rate, and the Reds have only a 23% strikeout rate. So like above average production, below average strikeout rates. And Cincinnati is what Cincinnati is, but San Diego's a good team and they're hard to get a win against. So it's like I like Alzolay, but this next stretch might be a little tough for him. But all that's going to do is present another buying opportunity. You can pick him up now. Like you pick him up now, and you believe in it, you want to run him out against against these next couple games, that's fine. But if you don't want to, he's one of the guys you can sit back and like. I didn't pick up Alzolay in any of my leagues this year or this week, but if he, he doesn't even need to get roughed up in these next starts. Like if he's just like ho hum, goes 5 or 6 innings and gives up 3 runs and not good enough to like make people pay attention to him, then I'm going to go right back to him. And that's, we talk about the short fantasy memories that everyone has. That's not for us. We want to take advantage of other people having short fantasy memories when it comes to like forgetting about players. We want to be, I think we've talked about this before. I hear a lot of smart people talk about if you're in a league where, you do weekly fab, don't just look at who you won. Look at everyone who was dropped. Like look at those drops. A lot of them might be unexpected. We've talked about all these injury crunches people in. Like people are going to be dropping people you don't expect. So it's like always be ready to pounce. Never forget, especially with pitchers. Like people forget about pitchers a lot more frequently because it's not like a hitter you can forget about because he went 1 for 20 or whatever. And, like ho hum, it's a hitter. Those things happen. But when pitchers go bad, they really stick out in our minds because we're like, oh my God, we what was I thinking? I started Luis Castillo in Colorado and he allowed 50 earned runs in 1 inning. So we remember those big blow ups and on like, if on pitchers, but man, all it takes is a couple of better opponents, and the exact same pitcher with the exact same talent is going to have a lot different results. So guys like Alzolay, like hold off on the tough starts, but be ready to pounce like very quickly. Like don't just keep holding the bag on guys like this whenever these up and down, especially like rookie guys that they have their ebbs and their flows. Like jump back in there. Don't just don't be someone who dumps a player and is just done with that player. Like there's a lot of people like that. They're like, I dumped them once, I'm not picking them up again. Don't be like that. Shift in and out.
Yeah, and that's great advice. That's the difference, between a player that like Kikuchi and Caprilian, you want to add right now because they could help you in the short term. And Alzolay, well, maybe this isn't the week to start him. Maybe you add him or stash him if you can afford that. But yeah, there's different at different points throughout the season. These players will help us, right? They're not all good all the time. Over 162 games, they're not all bad all the time. They have good months, bad months, first half, second half. So that's it. You kind of have to pay attention. It's kind of weird. That's the thing with baseball.
Be one with fantasy. Just flow with everything. Take it all in. Listen to us. You'll be fine.
I think that's good advice. All right. Well, there you go. This is our waiver wire. We don't usually do waiver wire, but these are guys we just had to get off our chest. You have to add them at some point if you can. Of course, we have all sorts of other waiver wire advice, videos, articles, right here on RotoBaller.com every single week for every single position. You guys probably are already aware of that. If you didn't know, we're here as often as possible. Hit that subscribe button and catch us next time. All right. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.